So we were to do like a deep dive into the comparisons, or rather the similarities between the cases of Lindsay and Laci Peterson. First of all, we can all agree that this has to do with a family. Like Lindsay and Patrick Clancy are a couple, and Laci and Scott are all a couple. Now, before we even move to anything else, we have to look at the motive of each couple. So, first of all, let me start off by saying that this couple right here, Lindsay, Lindsay's trial is still ongoing. We do not know up to when. On this other couple right here, for Laci Peterson, for her, she's not dead anymore, and so was her son. They're not anymore. But the husband, who was the prime suspect in the case, is serving time in prison for this other specific case. And this is what I want to focus on as we compare to these or list similarities. For Laci Clancy, she assuming that Patrick did it, and we're just going to base, because, and hear me out, as it is, as the trial is still ongoing, I feel like every other question that Patrick is being asked is coming back to him being a suspect. The way in which he's answering questions and the contradictions that he has is circling back to him being treated as a suspect in the future. And maybe he might as well go for trial, which would be also justice for the entire family, in my honest opinion. So let's assume that the court finds Patrick guilty of this crime, because him and the people around him, and also his lawyer and everyone else around him that is convinced that he is not guilty, and also the police, they are the only ones. But a very big number of people tends to think that there's a possibility that this man right here committed that crime, because it is a similar crime. It is a similar crime to that of the Watts family, and in my own opinion, I'm also seeing similarities with the case of Laci Peterson and Scott Peterson. So this video is based off of if ever the court was to find Patrick guilty. So, or maybe what makes him seem to be the prime suspect in this whole ordeal. So as we stated, they both involve families, people who are married, people who are in a relationship, married or in a domestic partnership. You just have to look at the motive that Patrick has and the motive that Scott has had, right? So in the case of Scott, we could say that his motive to get rid of, he may have wanted to get rid of Laci because he had an ongoing affair with, I believe, a woman called Faye. On this other hand, what could be the motive of Patrick? Also, Scott wanted so bad to start anew of his life with this guy over here. So with him, there's an affair ongoing, and of course, he could not sort of admit to it. With this other person right here, allegedly, the accusations are, or the speculations are, that his current wife had been seeing him way before the murders of these children. So they had been seeing each other way before all this was ongoing. So what would be Patrick's motive? First of all, he is dating someone else, someone who's a doctor. So the lady Lindsay is a nurse by profession. So now he's got someone, another lady. First of all, the resemblance of the two, mind-boggling. So he's got into a relationship, an affair, allegedly, with this other woman who he later married in the future. So there's the need of also wanting to start afresh. And there's also the masking of the affair as well, because he is legally married to Lindsay, right? And so I do not know the state law in that specific area they're in about infidelity, but most of the times you find that in the cases of infidelity, there's a 50-50 split of property, or depending on the prenuptial agreement that you have, or to some extent, the partner that's been cheated on, who's now the victim, can get more property accrued or assets accrued during the marriage. So let's leave it at that. Having not known what stipulates of the law in that specific area, we cannot judge what it is, but maybe it's worth a Google search. So in this case, he cannot afford to lose this new woman who is actually a doctor. That is an up. He's up dating, not down dating. So, and also, this is a new woman. She doesn't have children, probably doesn't have mental conditions the same like the ones that Lindsay has. And so, who wouldn't want a clean slate? And so, he gets on with. And also, there's also speculation that also like there's also the speculations that there was a life insurance policy on the children. Let me just say allegedly. And if there's a life insurance policy on the children, there may have been a spousal insurance policy. So this is all alleged, right? Yeah, there's also that as a motive. And way before that, there was like a travel to and fro, his hometown and New York, where later on in life we realized that that's where he allegedly met the current wife and had been allegedly viewing apartments. And that is where, after all these things happened, he went and started a new life at. So this is all part of the motives. So to also like compare the two cases right here, we see that by the time the murders are happening, for like both parties, the husbands are missing at home. For Patrick, he wasn't at home, and for Scott, according to him, he also wasn't at home when apparently Laci went missing while pregnant. So those are two things to also compare. And also another thing, these two spouses were not at home, right? And so the two cases, like by the time the murder of these children is occurring, the strangulation, Patrick is not home, and apparently he had errands to run at the time. Look at that time window. For the case of Scott and Laci Peterson, also according to him, he had things to do. I believe he said he went fishing or something by the time the killings of Laci and the child was happening. Quite suspicious in a way. And you see, what got me thinking in this case of Patrick and Lindsay is the fact that maybe this happens, or maybe this happens a lot, but can you deliver orders through the phone if you are in the same house with your spouse? Do you guys do that? Because according to me, I find that to be very, very suspicious. I do, unfortunately. I find it to be extremely suspicious because, and I do understand maybe why she maybe have texted him, because maybe she didn't want to disturb him while he was down the basement working. But again, you are a couple. And also, like this entire time, you're in the house working, I do understand that. And the wife is upstairs, probably with the children. Like, how do you just get like a text to like go and get an order of some food, and then when you step out of medication, without even coming out of your office, going to check on the kids, say hi, nini, and then walk out the house? Like, what kind of relationship? I do understand maybe there may have been a dying relationship with your wife, but your kids, did you at all want your children? Like, yeah. On to one of the other things that I thought about while listening to both of them is, besides the spouse, there was no one else to account for the incidences, which makes it so hard for the case. Because right now it's basically the case like Patrick's word against Lindsay's, and at this point it's basically just Scott's word, because like the wife and the child is gone. So the lack of any other person to like testify against these people, and especially because of what had happened is what makes these two people like all suspects. The partner, the main suspects. For this one, Patrick, yes, he did provide. There was like the 911 call that he had made, which also validates his intention to also like want to save his children, like with CPR and stuff like that. And he could be, there's also like the thing of being on phone and being heard screaming and hollering, and that could be used as evidence to show that anyway he might as well not have heard it, but actually found the crime scene ready for him, which doesn't make him, yes, like the suspect, but he is the only one at this point. Do you see? Can we just go back to the affair just a little bit? Let's go back to the affair. First of all, I believe for Patrick's new current wife, right? There's a place that they visited, and she gave like a review of the place, and she stated that that was their third time being there. And so I'm like, okay, this is your third time being there. This is in the year 2025. It is your third time being there. So like, how often do you, how many times, like after how long do you guys go there? When were you going to the same place while Lindsay was still married to Patrick? And I do understand. Let's just assume that he had not moved on. Let's say he wasn't having an affair with the new woman. Is it Darcy? Let's assume he wasn't having an affair with the new woman. But why would you? Was it like 3 weeks after, or three weeks after the murder of the 3 children? The man takes a vacation. First of all, I do understand people grieve differently, and I could see why he could maybe have probably taken a vacation, given that the children are gone, the wife is in prison, the wife is in jail, and there's basically nothing to live for. So you can't really, maybe, but I know myself, and probably I wouldn't do that. But there's the bit where you're going on a vacation 3 weeks later, and to the public it seems as if you're not grieving really. It could be a way of trying to like get out of that environment and get some fresh air, a new aspect at life. But that wasn't taken lightly. It's barely a month. You know very well that your wife is also not in a good mental state. You know she is paralyzed. I do not know if they were divorced by then, but later he filed for divorce, right? So, and this is someone who had just given birth 8 months ago, because the youngest child, Carlon, was 8 months old. So you do know that this is not a fully recovered woman, someone that you called your wife, and now you're off to a vacation. So, assuming he didn't even go on vacation with the new wife, so assuming he wasn't cheating and stuff like that, but the thing is, you had gone to New York, the same place that you currently live at, and also, I do understand, and also like a month later, allegedly he sells his house at $1.7 million, and also allegedly he cashes in on the life insurance policies of the children. First of all, this is all alleged, right? So at this point, I'm looking at Patrick and I'm like, no, like there's just the motive surrounding your story. And also, there's one thing that came up during the trial, and especially yesterday, because I was watching the trial live, and when Kevin Reddington was asking Patrick, not really Patrick, but he was asking, like, was it like an investigator or the guy works for I can't remember his title anyway, but he was asking him something about Laci's phone, and here is the details that you really need to know. It turns out that, so let's start from that, like from the morning, right? So there was a search history on Laci's phone, and this search history, oh my god, I think I'd have to like do a different video for this, like the entire search history. And the search history was just pointing out to what led to all these to like the strangulation of the children and everything else. There was the search history involved searching for, is it like a carotid artery? I hope I didn't butcher the pronunciation. There's also the search for like a kid's medical situation. There was also a search for like, was it like how to hit the neck or how deep to cut the neck anyway, it's grossy. And there was also the search about medication. There was the search about postpartum depression. There was the search about mania. These are just all the things I can remember from what was happening on the trial, from what I heard from the trial. The search history is so long. I'm going to look for it and do a video about it. And one thing I can remember is, in as much as the search history was happening, was it in that house as well, and it may have been on Lindsay's phone, the email that had logged into the account that led to all these searches was Patrick Clancy's email. I believe it may have been patrick.clancy@gmail.com or something. Yeah, which now incriminates him to some extent, allegedly. So, and then there's the bit where, as the search history was ongoing and the timing of the search history, I believe on that specific morning that the search history was happening, and there's also like the search history about airbags. As the search history was happening, it is like it is about the same timeline as Lindsay was going to, is it like a pediatric office? He was basically taking like the kids to a pediatrician, right? To a doctor. So when you look at that, and also keep in mind that Patrick works from home, this kind of information incriminates Patrick more. And there's also like the speculation where people are saying that the search about the airbags may have been the reason Lindsay was scared to drive, because she may have felt or thought that the car was tampered with. And there's one lady that came up and said that she was in the courtroom when the audio of Patrick's devastation on the 911 call happened. And she was comparing this incident to a time when she was comparing Patrick's reaction to one of the people in her life whom in the 90s she had heard making the same screams and howling as Patrick made, but over the phone in the 1990s. So, first of all, I do understand what you mean, but the thing is, people can act over the phone. People can be dramatic. People can act over the phone, but I feel like this has to be accompanied by you visually seeing their actions.